Throughout most of the 2010s, if you were to turn on any NASCAR Cup Series race and look at the leaderboard, chances are you'd see the number 23 and 83 cars riding around somewhere outside the top 30 and probably off the lead lap. That was a legacy of the former Cup Series team BK Racing. Founded in 2012 by Ron Devine, Wayne Press, and Mike Wheeler, the team began as a predecessor to the newly defunct Red Bull Racing team, and their entire operation was basically made up of the old Red Bull Racing equipment. In their first season, they fared alright all things considered, with 15 top 20 finishes between their two full-time cars. But over time, their equipment began to show its age, and with little outside funding, the team would be lucky to finish in the top half of the field more than a few times per season. Fast forward to the start of the 2016 season, the team still only held a single top 10 finish to their name, that being from the Fall Talladega race all the way back in 2012, where Travis Cavapel crossed the line in 8th place. Considering that BK Racing wasn't starting in parking, it was almost impressive that after 3 more seasons of fielding 2 to 3 full-time cars, they hadn't at least gotten lucky enough at the end of another superspeedway race to score another top 10. But I rest my case. Anyway, for 2016, the team downsized from running 3 full-time cars back to just 2, with David Ragan in the 23 and Matt DiBenedetto in the 83. While the returning and sophomore year Cup driver of DiBenedetto lacked any notable experience other than a few ARCA wins, Ragan was a major signing. Having competed full-time in the Cup Series since 2007 with 2 wins and a best points finish of 13th, the former Roush driver was coming off a season of substitution. First taking over for an injured Kyle Busch after the Daytona 500, and then for an ill Brian Vickers at Michael Waltrip Racing from the 11th race at Kansas until the end of the season, Ragan failed to make the most of his opportunities. Despite running the full schedule and competing for big teams in all but one race, he only scored a single top 5 finish, and top 10 at that, with a 5th place run in the spring Martinsville race. But still, with his near decade of Cup experience, Ragan would be able to provide lots of good information to BK Racing, and given that he was able to give Front Row Motorsports their first win back in 2013 at Talladega, maybe he could do the same for his new team on one of the superspeedways. Ragan wasn't the only asset that BK Racing would be taking over from Michael Waltrip Racing either, as due to the closure of the MWR team following the 2015 season, BK Racing was able to buy up most of their equipment and hire many of their employees. So setting up for 2016, BK Racing was looking at a comeback from their recent struggles, thanks to their newer equipment and some more experienced personnel that could potentially put them back in their 2012 prime or even better. But that year's Daytona 500 was certainly not a sign of good things to come. Although all 4 of their cars were able to make the field, which was an accomplishment of its own, not one of them finished higher than 29th. That was David Ragan, who with Michael Waltrip right behind him in 30th weren't involved in a wreck, but were simply mired in the back of the pack. However, the other 2 BK Racing entries didn't make it to the finish, as DiBenedetto crashed out on lap 92, and Robert Richardson Jr. would suffer engine failure on lap 135. So while the season opener was nothing short of a total failure, the next few races to come showed a bit of promise. Heading into the 8th round at Bristol, it was actually DiBenedetto who scored the team's best result thus far, with a P20 at Phoenix. Ragan also was showing some improvement, as at Phoenix he brought it home only 4 positions back of DiBenedetto in 24th, and over the next 2 weeks he continued to better his results with a P22 at Auto Club and a P21 at Martinsville. Ragan's run at Martinsville was the best the team had in a while on a short track, and after qualifying 24th at Bristol, it looked like he might be able to back it up. Though they weren't necessarily good on any types of tracks, short tracks were arguably the biggest problem for BK Racing throughout their team history. Their best ever finish at one was only a P16 from back in 2013 at Bristol, and while Ragan almost got done a few weeks prior, their most recent top 20 at one dated back to Colwitt's P18 in the 2014 Fall Martinsville race. So needless to say, expectations going into the 2016 Food City 500 were basically non-existent. But with Ragan out-qualifying the likes of Kyle Larson, Kurt Busch, and Ricky Stenhouse Jr., and with Matt DiBenedetto lining up a still respectable 30th place, maybe they could finally break their short track top 20 drought. On pole that day was Joe Gibbs Racing's Carl Edwards, and the rest of his teammates were not far behind. In fact, all 4 of the JGR Toyotas lined up inside the top 5, only broken up by the 3rd place qualifier Joey Logano. In ninth was AJ Allmendinger, who just a few weeks ago at Martinsville had driven to an outstanding second place behind Kyle Busch and was looking to carry on his short track momentum. To Allmendinger's outside was Trevor Bayne with his third top 10 qualifying effort already that season. And lastly, as far as the upset qualifiers, was Casey Mears in 16th, who hadn't scored a single top 10 finish since the previous year's Daytona 500. But now, without any further ado, it's time to go racing. Already the drop of the green flag, problems arose for Dale Earnhardt Jr. Due to a glitch in his car's electronic control unit, it simply wouldn't fire off, and he was forced to coast down pit road. Fortunately, this issue wasn't terminal, and by simply resetting the ECU, he was able to get back up to speed, only having lost 2 laps to the leaders. Suffering along with Dale Jr. with the drivers lined up right behind him on the initial start, such as Eric Almirola, Kurt Busch, and David Ragan. Trapped with nothing to do except let the whole field fly past them, all 3 of them sank to the very back of the order. And though aerodynamics play a lot less of a role at short tracks than on the intermediates, Almirola and Ragan especially both received a good bit of front-end damage from the stack-up. The only good news was that there were still over 490 laps to go. 50 laps in, Kurt Busch and Eric Almirola had at least been able to crack back up into the top 30 and stay in the lead lap. However, it was apparent that whatever speed David Ragan had in qualifying was completely used up, as he had only been able to pass 1 car since the start, and was stuck all the way back in 38th, 1 lap down. Shortly thereafter, on lap 52, the first caution of the day came out, and Kyle Busch cut a right front tire and got up into the outside wall. Busch was running in 3rd at the time, and like the rest of the leaders, was having a terrible time getting past the lap traffic. The inside groove hadn't been worked in yet whatsoever, so bad that for the past 15 laps, the leaders had been stuck right behind the 32nd place car of Danica Patrick, unable to complete a pass to her inside. And to her credit, she succeeded at staying on the lead lap by the time the caution came out, and so the free pass would go to the 95 of Michael McDowell. At the lap 100 mark, Matt Kenseth continued to lead the way, having led all but 1 lap since he took the top spot from Carl Edwards on lap 43. A second caution had come up back on lap 70 when Ricky Stenhouse Jr. got loose and spun around, but since then it had been clear sailing. Early in the run, Matt DiBenedetto began making his way through the field, getting up as high as 19th at one point, before eventually falling back to around 25th. Meanwhile, luck had not changed for the other half of BK Racing, as Ragan had yet to show any improvement and went a second lap down. Running in 37th place and with multiple cars just 1 lap down ahead of him, he would require a series of waiver rounds if he wanted any shot of a decent finish. On lap 109, the 6th place driver of Joey Logano came in for an unscheduled pit stop after feeling a vibration. However, their day would go from bad to worse when an uncontrolled tire penalty would force them to come back down for a pass-through penalty. After losing 2 laps from that, the 22 team was given somewhat of a break when the 3rd caution came out in lap 116, when Kyle Busch went spinning out of turn 2. This time it wasn't due to a flat tire, but instead a small checkup in front of him caused the 34 of Chris Buescher to hit him square in the bumper and turn him around. Prior to the spin, Kyle had worked his way back up from his previous incident to an impressive 16th place, and now he had to start from scratch all over again. Over the course of the next green flag run, 3 unusual contenders had made their way up into the top 10. The first 2 of AJ Allmendinger and Trevor Bayne had been there nearly all race long after qualifying there and even improving their positions throughout the race. At one point, AJ had made it up to 4th and Bayne to 6th, and sandwiched right in between them was a third of the underdogs, Paul Menard. After qualifying 14th, Menard didn't really move ahead or fall behind early on, but under the most recent caution, his team decided to play the strategy game and just take right-side tires. This boosted the 27 car up to 2nd on the restart, and he did a great job hanging on afterwards. Another driver who could have been considered a bit of an underdog at the time, as he had not yet won a cup race, was Kyle Larson, who was running right behind the leaders in 3rd. However, Larson would not break through that day, or even have a chance to, because on lap 147 he suffered track bar breakage and got into the wall. While his day wasn't completely done, he went multiple laps down for repairs, and thus any decent finish was out of the picture. Problems also arose for Trevor Bayne under caution as he tried to bamboozle the cars behind him a bit too much, and ended up being penalized for a commitment line violation, meaning that he had to drop to the rear of the field on the restart. Matt Kenseth continued to lead the way when the race went back green, still easily the dominant driver of the day. But his reign would come crashing down quite literally on lap 187 when he cut a right front tire and smacked into the outside wall. And he wasn't the only one with tire problems, as just a few laps earlier, the 7th place driver, Chase Elliott, came down pit road for a vibration, losing 2 laps in the process. But at least his issues were not terminal to his race, as the same could not be said about David Ragan. On lap 218, while running in 37th and 7 laps off the pace, the engine of the number 23 car finally expired and put a cap on their miserable day. But back out front, Carl Edwards picked up right where his teammate of Kenseth had left off and took command of the race all the way past the halfway point. Around that time, Matt DiBenedetto had gotten his way back into the top 20, where he ran 18th and continued to show promise. Another underfunded driver building up a great race was Landon Cassill in the Front Row Motorsports number 38. At that point, Cassill had made it to 16th from his 28th place starting spot, and his day was about to get a whole lot better. On lap 259, Kyle Busch, who had made it back up to 10th place, got into the wall when his right front tire went down for a second time. This time, the impact was much more severe, and the points leader coming into the race was unable to return to the track. While the caution presented a good opportunity for most of the field to come down pit road, 4 drivers would opt to stay out, all led by Landon Cassill. On roughly 40-lap older tires, Cassill had quite the task ahead of him to hold off the 19 of Edwards for even a couple of laps. Edwards, who restarted 5th, charged up into 2nd in lap 275, just 2 laps after the green flag waved. But I don't think anyone could have expected how long it would take him to get around Cassill. Despite being right on Cassill's bumper for multiple laps, it took Carl until lap 282 to finally clear him and take back the top spot. So while he lost the lead and would fall back into order throughout the rest of the race, for the driver who hadn't scored a single top 10 finish into the 2014 season, his brief time out front was one that he surely wouldn't forget anytime soon. Edwards held the lead this time until lap 319 when, clogged up in heavy lap traffic, Kevin Harvick was able to close the gap and make a dive to his inside and clear him. However, closing in on both the 4 and the 19 was the 48 of Jimmy Johnson, and not for the lead, but rather to get one of his 2 laps back the old-fashioned way. While Johnson was putting together a solid race and running in 3rd just 20 laps earlier, a potential loose lug nut on one of his tires caused his car to become uncontrollably loose, and he had no choice but to come in for an unscheduled pit stop. Before he could make the pass on Harvick, issues arose for 2 other drivers over the next few laps. First, on lap 322, Matt Kenseth, who had made his way back up to 3rd following his contact with the wall, had deja vu just like Kyle Busch, cutting his right front tire and getting to the wall again. He was able to get off the track safely and no caution came out, that is until very shortly after on lap 330 when Josh Wise suffered much the same fate, but impacted the wall even harder and left debris behind him. The next 2 green flag runs lasted no more than 5 laps apiece as Michael Annett, AJ Allmendinger, and Casey Mears decided to go 3 wide, causing Mears to go Tokyo drifting and become an instant Save of the Year contender. And then to 44, Brian Scott got loose all by himself and backed into the outside wall. And with just under 150 laps to go at Bristol, the carnage was far from over. While the action in the middle to back of the pack was getting ever more chaotic, up front it remained relatively stable. Kurt Busch provided the biggest threat to Edwards, as after working his way up to 2nd prior to the most recent caution, he powered by the 19 on the restart and hung onto the lead for 41 laps. Then, much like how Edwards lost the lead earlier to Harvick, Kurt Busch got trapped in lap traffic and allowed Edwards to swoop down to the inside line and finally get by him. But while Edwards had shown all race long that he had winning speed, he wouldn't exactly have been too confident in his car had he been paying attention to his teammates. With Kyle Busch out of the race, Matt Kenseth hobbling around multiple laps down, and now his final teammate, Denny Hamlin, getting into the wall on lap 410, all due to blown right front tires, it was clear that Joe Gibbs Racing had a major flaw somewhere in their setups. Thankfully for Edwards, those issues had not presented themselves yet, and continued not to as the race wound down. Another caution came out with 64 to go when Eric Almirola went around after contact with Martin Truex Jr., and again with 41 to go when Landon Cassill, who had slipped back to 13th at that point, got loose and shoved the 14 of Ty Dillon to the outside wall. For Dillon, this may have actually come as a blessing in disguise, as before being hit, he had already had a pretty bad tire rub. That was thanks to Dillon Hart Jr., who, similar to Cassill, ran Dillon up the track and into the wall while battling for position inside the top 10. When the race restarted with 34 to go, Joey Logano missed his shift from 5th place and caused a huge stack up behind him. Casey Kane, who lined up right behind him, received a good bit of front-end damage, and multiple other cars on the inside of the line were forced to watch as all the others flew on by. One of those on the outside was none other than Matt DiBenedetto, who, after earning a free pass a few cautions prior, had fought his way up to 14th under the most recent yellow, and being able to take advantage of the ensuing restart, found himself in the top 10 for the first time that day. Matt held his ground and didn't give up a single spot at the time when the next caution came out. Now the 14th of the day, the 3rd place curse struck for a 4th time when the 4 of Kevin Harvick got loose and hit the wall out of turn 2, causing him to door slam the lap car of Michael Annett and spin the 46 around. Especially late in a race, cautions breed more cautions, and after just a single green flag lap, the yellow flew again when the 7 of Regan Smith got pinched by Danica Patrick and clobbered the outside wall. With just 5 laps left when the green flag would come back out again, Carl Edwards was still in the lead, having led over 270 laps thus far from the pole, while to his inside was Kurt Busch, the most recent driver to take the lead from Edwards, and the driver who won 3 Food City 500s in a row from 2002 to 2004. In row 2 was the 2014 Xfinity Series champion and Cup rookie Chase Elliott, alongside Dale Earnhardt Jr., who had overcome his lap 1 mechanical problems to get his lap back and now somehow have a real shot at the win. Behind him was Trevor Bayne, who after running into the top 10 early on, was taken out of the picture by a commitment line violation penalty on lap 150, and was now looking to have a great finish after all. And in 8th, having picked up 2 more spots in the previous restart, was Matt DiBenedetto, the journeyman driver who had a best Cup Series finish of 18th, and was now in position to give BK Racing their first top 10 finish since 2012. But without any further ado, here's the finish.
Look at Junior getting a great start.
Let me tell you, don't count that 88 out. He's pretty darn good.
6 to go.
Junior doesn't have a win yet either this year. This could be big for him if he could get it.
Nice clean restart.
Right now, I think he's really happy being in that second spot.
I think he's thrilled to death. I would be. What's the odds of this finishing without another yellow? Not very good one I'm seeing.
Wow, 41.
Whoa, man.
Slides out to 88, makes a pass,
right back on
crossover.
This could get ugly right here.
And that, boy, they are
Going
Carl
again.
Edwards' best friend right now.
Oh, yeah.
Boy,
I was loving this.
That was some great, oh my gosh, that was great short track racing right there.
And then you got Chase Elliott
Oh,
watching.
we got 41 got loose off it too, and here comes Chase.
White flag one more time.
White flag.
1 lap to go, sponsored by Credit One Bank. Carl Edwards well out in front of a great battle for second place. Earnhardt, Busch, Elliott, and Bayne for the top 5. Checkered flag in the air. Carl Edwards dominates Bristol.
What I'm talking about. Great work, guys.
He led 276 laps and held off all comers. Was only passed once on a restart all day, as Jeff pointed out. He deserved to win it, and he held them all off.
You just don't have many days like that at Bristol. It was flawless.
Man, that was awesome, guys. Great job.
And remember, he did this from the pole, earned that number 1 pit stall, great pit stops, great restarts, great race car, great driving by Carl Edwards.
And no right front tire problems.
So while Carl Edwards made off with a convincing win over Dale Jr., the spotlight was certainly also shared by the 3 underdogs who finished inside the top 10. Trevor Bayne crossed the line 5th to score his first top 5 since his Daytona 500 win in 2011. Clint Boyer came out of nowhere to land in 8th place with his underfunded H. Scott Motorsports team. And of course, Matt DiBenedetto was able to hold off Kevin Harvick to finish in 6th. Despite David Ragan's misfortune that day, DiBenedetto's run turned the 2016 Food City 500 into the team's best race up to that point, and as time would tell, their best race ever. Through BK Racing's final season in 2018, they would only score 1 more top 10 finish, that being with Greg Galding in the 2017 Alabama 500 at Talladega. There, Galding came home 9th in a total wreckfest of a race that saw only 14 cars make it to the finish line. So DiBenedetto's 6th place run was pretty much unchallenged over the rest of the team's history, and in that moment, he let the viewers know just exactly how much that meant to him.
Matt DiBenedetto brings it home 6 today. Matt, obviously a huge finish for this small team. Your thoughts?
I'm sorry, I'm so speechless. I'm so thankful to everybody on this team, everybody at BK Racing, Cosmo Motors in Hickory in North Carolina. They're local to me. He's my best friend. Sell some awesome cars. Please check him out. Everyone at BK Racing, Dustless Blasting. These guys, man, that's unbelievable for a team like us to be growing this much, and for us to get a 6th place run. I'm sorry, I'm so emotional. It's just, this is like a win for us, and I am so excited. I see my family back here, my wife, Taylor. My brother is in town from the military, and I'm so glad he got to experience this. This is just, is incredible. I'm so blessed to be here.
Big finish for BK Racing.
And some really touching comments. You could feel the emotion and how spent the 24-year-old is with his best finish. And this was pre-race, Michael. You were down there, and he shows you his range of personality from being emotional and then having fun prior to the race.
Well, racing is such a great opportunity for these kids to show their personality. And Matt DiBenedetto, I've known him for a year or so. I drove for this team down at Daytona, and he has so much energy and so much passion for the sport. And I love that they're cool enough to get out there and show that passion and be fun like that. And then when they have a run like he had today, get that top 10 finish and show how much it meant to him and his team.
Yeah,
But that is all for today's video. Thank you all very much for making it to the end. If you did enjoy it, please make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more videos just like these. For my upcoming videos, I'm planning to continue on with this series as well as many more additions to the Were They That Bad series. But also as the 2023 NASCAR season winds down, I'll be looking forward to making some more driver grading and driver tier list videos like last year's, so long as you guys will be interested in that. I've also got many more ideas for some like new original videos coming up, and some of those should be out pretty soon within the next few weeks here, so stay tuned for that. And lastly, as far as announcements on the channel, I might try out at least short term to shorten the lengths of some of these videos down to around the 10 to 15 minute range from the current 20 to 25 minute range. As now that I'm back in school, it'll be increasingly more difficult to find time for editing. And I personally think it'll be more important for me to make shorter, better edited videos about once a week to once every 2 weeks. And then for me to continue trying to make longer ones that at some point might take about a month to get out with school going on. And also, at least last year, I was starting to get really burnt out on some of the video topics when I was working on the same video for a little bit every day for more than about a week or two. So yeah, I expect, at least for now, a little bit shorter of video lengths. Yeah, that should be all the channel announcements for now. If there's any more, I'll make sure to let you guys know in the community posts. But anyway, that's all for today's video, and until next time, peace out.